Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber. Today, we're going to go into the art of nonviolent communication. Shout out to Shelza, one of our Love Club members. We meet on a biweekly basis and have a love mastermind session. And Shelza was like, can we do one on nonviolent communication? And it happened to be perfect timing because an old friend, colleague, had just moved to Austin, Texas. I guess you arrived in Austin, Texas a few years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody has moved to Austin, Texas. If you were living in Los Angeles pre-pandemic, somehow you may have made your way to Austin, Texas, because it is booming. This city is a wellness mecca. There's tons of biohackers here and podcasters. So of course, Deepen with Christina now became a video podcast in Austin, Texas. And Micah, we're gonna practice the last name
Salaberrios.
Salaberrios.
Yes.
If you guys have been listening to Deepen with Christina for quite some time, you might have learned that I have a phonics deficiency. However, that doesn't stop me from speaking. So even if you have a little bit of a, I don't know, mispronunciation of words, it shouldn't take your voice away. And in communication, the idea is that we just do it. We just communicate, and we learn the art of communication so that we can bond more deeply with each other, understand each other, and have more fulfilling relationships.
Yes.
Micah, you have ventured to create a career, become a teacher of the art of nonviolent communication.
Mm-hmm.
Why and how did this begin?
Why? Because I needed it. Look, when I first came across it, someone used it on me, and it worked. I was filming a movie. Things were getting tense. It was like I was editing a movie. I was working with a producer every day for months. Everything was great, and then things started to go bad, but we didn't talk about it. And so the underlying tension was just rising and rising and rising. And then it was just, and then one day it just blew up and everything was about to go bad. And all of a sudden she did some emergency empathy, which is a part of nonviolent communication on me, resolved the whole issue real quick. And then later she was like, I did NVC on you. I've been taking a class. And I was like, what is that? And then, so I started learning about it and I realized, oh, wow, I need this because I had a good childhood, but it was like a verbally volatile household. And so that was my it was like a weakness I had. And so now I turned it into a strength.
When you say things start to go bad, what does that mean?
Well, it wasn't fun. We weren't able to communicate. Everything was communicated not directly through size and body language and so,
eye rolls,
eye rolls and just borderline tone was always and just it was just tense because we never talked it out. Yeah.
So you had a team that was operating on a mission to create a movie.
Yeah.
And a bunch of personalities.
It was actually just two. It was just me and her.
Oh, it was just you and her.
Yeah, the director was coming in and out, but it was me and her working side by side every day. And it was great for 3 or 4 months. But I think we just let things build instead of when things are small, talk about them, resolve them, move on. That's what NVC allows you to do. Resolve any issue and then move on. Then you can be good. But if you don't resolve it, try to sweep it under the rug. Now there's a big mountain on the rug you have to trip over every day. And it gets to be a problem.
Sweeping it under the rug. And I imagine then two people also start creating stories about why the other person isn't performing or doing the things that they wanted them to do, or
exactly assuming the worst,
the stress, ill intent, of course.
And it was stress. We had deadlines. It was a big project, so life is stressful too. It's a hard life.
So when she, quote unquote, used nonviolent communication on you, what was she doing?
Well, so basically she said, are you feeling in the middle of tense, right? I had found a bunch of great footage and I was like, oh, you got to see. I was like, I found all this footage. She'd asked me to do something over the weekend. While I was doing it, I realized to do that, I had to also do this other thing first. So it's like, oh, let me do this, and then I discovered all this footage that solved a bunch of issues in the documentary. So when I came in, I was like, I didn't get to that, but what I did get to was all this stuff that solves this, this, and this, and I was all excited. And the director happened to be there too, which I think amplified things because he was here that day. And she just was not hearing anything I said, all the good stuff, and was just mad that I hadn't finished the thing that she'd said, even though that was not that important. It wasn't like super relevant. So then I was just like, are you? I couldn't handle it. I blew my lid. We weren't yelling, but it was just very like, you know. I was like, this footage, you know. Anyways, it became real intense. And I was really like, all right, I'm done. Like, if you can't recognize all this amazing footage and you just want to try to, you know, whatever, this wasn't good. And then all of a sudden she just switched her tone and was like, are you feeling upset because something along the lines of, are you feeling upset because, this is emergency empathy, she did. So he goes, are you feeling upset because you would like more appreciation for all the hard work and talent you're bringing to the project? And it was like, that was exactly how I felt. And so by her naming it, bringing awareness to it, all of a sudden I didn't need to say anything more because that was how I felt. And I was just trying to be like, you know, I just relaxed and calmed down. And then she realized, and then that process calmed her down too. So all of a sudden we were like on this, I felt heard and understood. You know, when you're in an argument and people are getting louder and louder and repeating themselves because no one feels heard or understood. And so they say, let me say it louder. Let me say it again. Maybe, but that doesn't work. So in that moment I felt heard and understood. I calmed down. She calmed down. And then we were able to actually talk. And she was like, you're right. This footage is amazing. It works. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I probably should have told you beforehand instead of surprising you in front of the director that, you know. And so then things were good. And that helped clear like a lot of the backlog. And we talked. And then funnily enough, I started learning. I went home and started studying NBC. And then I ended up like coaching her a lot because she took a course, but I was just like reading the books, watching videos, and just like really deep diving.
So this is a modality, nonviolent communication.
Yeah, there's a book on it.
There's a book, there's teachings.
Yeah.
And what are they, how are they teaching you to communicate more effectively?
Well, what I love about it is the core principles are just beautiful and amazing because it's authenticity. It's like 100% authenticity. It's not about being nice. It's about being loving, but loving like is can be ruthless, but ruthless means without pity. So you're just honest. You be very honest. However, you never ever blame someone for how you feel, and then you never judge them as wrong. Doesn't matter what they've done because a judgment is just an opinion, and you don't need to ever in NVC. You never need to say an opinion. Just use facts, and so you can express yourself truly, even your darker emotions, your unpleasant emotions and feelings. You're able to get them off your chest, but you do it in such a way where you're not saying that they're wrong and bad. A lot of times, when we like to speak violently, is just to be able to speak in a way that says you're wrong and bad. But however you can, however, like even like, I feel sad because you didn't say goodbye. That sentence right there will be considered violent because I'm saying I feel sad because you didn't say goodbye. You're wrong. You're bad. I'm a victim. You should change. I don't need to change. You know, all that. But to say in an NVC way would be, I feel bad because I would have liked you to have said goodbye. Now you're owning it. Same meaning, but all of a sudden you're not blaming anybody.
You're saying the expectation that you had in that moment that actually is what created the sadness.
My desire, my preference, as opposed to you're wrong, you did something wrong. Then it's like, you didn't do anything wrong. I wanted it.
Now, this is a skill set to learn.
Yeah.
Most of us weren't raised in environments where we heard people communicating in this way. We were raised where someone blamed the other person. You know, we were thinking through our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you then, as being someone who now has this skill set, give grace to others who just don't know? Or do you walk around completely frustrated that the world has not learned how to communicate properly?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because once you understand that, I mean, there's a few core principles in NBC that sometimes it's hard for people to agree with or digest, but one is like, you're not responsible for how anyone else feels. Now, you can be the catalyst, right? You can, like, if you walk up and call someone a name, right, and then they feel sad, are you responsible for how they feel? No. However, you're the catalyst for it because they can interpret it. They could laugh. They'd be like, that's silly. Or they could be sad, or they could get angry. The only thing that changes is how they think about it. So if they're ultimately, we're all ultimately responsible for how we feel. So therefore, anytime and someone in the world tries to blame me for how they feel, says I'm bad, I'm like, I know it's not true. And I don't also do it to them, which is, it's like a dark game. When you say, also, when you tell somebody you're wrong or bad for making me feel bad, you're also giving away your power. Now you're a victim. If you're not responsible for how you feel, then you have no control over your day. All of a sudden, you got to pray, hope and pray that nobody does anything bad to you, or else you're going to have a bad day. But when you own it, you're like, no, I am always responsible for how I feel. End of story. Now it's empowering. So even doesn't matter what happens around me. Whenever I'm annoyed, and annoying is a big one. Like someone's being annoying, like they're being annoying. You go, no. I think you got to change it. I find that annoying because I would prefer someone not to eat with their mouth open but it's just a more empowering way. I could choose to change it. So I'm living in the world, and it's not like it's I feel empowered by it, and I have more grace for other people too.
I had a previous partner who he would get upset at me if I shut the car door too hard
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and tell me that most people don't do that. I'm the only one in the world who does that. And he would, yeah. So I started to modify my behavior to shut the door in a way that didn't disturb his peace. But I also noticed that when I was out with others, I would ask how, to kind of get a feeler, like, was I the one shutting the doors too hard? And most people said, I mean, everybody pretty much was like, no, I didn't notice anything of that sort. So in that type of experience, like when you would look at something like that
Mm-hmm.
particular situation, who owns that trigger?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily frame it in like who owns the trigger, but NVC can be used for both ways. For him, let's start with him. So if he was trying to communicate to you in an NVC way, because it's fine, it's his preference. His preference is to not have the door closed. Your preference is to close the door however you feel like it. Right? You're not damaging the car, right? So those are two preferences. Nobody's wrong or right. It's just two different sets of preferences. So if he would use NVC, it's like a 4-step process. First step is you bring awareness to the thing. So he said, and you could do it in this order, or you could change up the order, but we'll just stick to the order, right? So you bring awareness. You're like, hey, babe, you just shut the door. And then you go to how you feel, and you need to be authentic. This is the scariest part, really being, and I'm feeling annoyed, right? This is what you just shut the door, and I'm feeling annoyed because I would prefer you to shut the door more gently. And then so the first step is attention to the incident or the whatever it is, how you feel, why you feel that way, because he has a preference of the door, not. And then the last thing is the specific request, which this one is where the art comes in a little bit, because sometimes all you need to do is just bring it up. So that would be like a connection based request where he says he brings it up, and then he says, does that, like, how do you feel about that, or does that make sense to you, or do you think I'm weird because I'm saying that? Right. Something just to be like, hey, I feel annoyed because the door's closed hard. I want it to be closed differently. What do you think about that? Or he could be um, basically an action-based request, which you kind of save for later. Or you could say why. Like, can you tell me why you are shutting the door like that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third way would be like, could you just not shut the door like that? Which is the harshest and generally doesn't really work right off the bat. You kind of need to have a you can get to the action based after you have a back and forth. And then if people some people get upset just by that, because it's like, whoa, you're saying I did something wrong. Blah, blah, blah. Then you stop the NVC, and then you do emergency empathy, and we'll get to that in a second. But So how would you respond? So say I'll be him, and you just respond however you feel like it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so hey, you just shut the door on the car, and I just want to, and I just want to be honest and tell you how I'm feeling right now because I'm feeling a little annoyed because I it's a new car and it's important to me that people don't shut the door so harsh. Could you just how do you feel about that?
Thank you so much for sharing with me how you felt about that. Yeah, I'll watch out for how I shut the door.
Okay, so that's how you would
Yeah, it was so, when someone speaks in that way, it feels so real and so honest that, and there's such a rarity. I find that people will have the ability to um, speak so thoughtfully that it almost just, my system is like, yeah, of course.
yeah.
It's just so easy.
Yes. Yeah, that's the right answer. Yeah, usually it's like just, and people don't realize that just bringing attention to it without any blame or judgment and the authenticity of saying, I feel annoyed, owning it. I feel annoyed, not you're being annoying. That's huge difference.
Or you're doing this wrong.
Yes, exactly.
And that's how I was always receiving is
Yeah.
like, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
And which then would put my defense up.
exactly.
And that's why I essentially go around and ask everybody else,
Mhm.
hey, how is it when I'm shutting the door?
Yeah. Yeah, because nobody ever wants to be told that they're wrong and bad. Like nobody
Now,
does.
on the opposite spectrum,
Yes. Mhm.
the other end, I uh it's so funny well, we talk about love and relationships on Deepen with Christina, so we'll go into it. So same human. If you actually go to my Instagram, you can pin 3 posts. I have one of my posts that went viral is on what happens in a woman's nervous system when a man opens the car door. And
Mhm.
I broke down, you know, all of the how it relaxes and provides safety for a woman. Well, this particular partner, he didn't open the car door, and I always wanted him to open the car door. So I was aiming to, in conversations through a couple months, inspire, to share how it felt in my system if he were to open the car door.
Mhm.
Uh, and so he kind of did the same thing that I did, where he went around to ask other women if they wanted the car door opened to justify why it's not necessary to open the car door. But I, as being the significant other of this human, really wanted, not all the time. I mean, I don't need the car door open when we're running to the grocery store or,
Mhm.
running out somewhere quickly or we're late. But if we're dressed up and going to a nice dinner or at a hotel. And, I do.
Yes,
I
yes.
like it, feels nice. I feel taken care of.
Yeah.
It feels thoughtful. But then he did the opposite. He did what I did. I'm sorry. He did the same thing that I did, where, I went out and started surveying, how am I shutting the door? So in that case, I wonder how I may have been able to inspire from a request
Mhm.
standpoint. Because,
Yeah. You wanna try it? See it?
yeah.
Alright, so the first thing you would do is, well, you could bring attention to it, which is the in this instance, I would maybe change the order. I would be like, if I were you, you could say something like, "I'm feeling," or you could you could bring it up like this, like, "Honey, babe," whatever, "there's something that's been on my mind that I wanted to bring up to you." Right? So that's like the fact. That's like, so the first step is called the observable fact. And so it's a fact, and it doesn't need to be observable. It just needs to be a fact, right? And it has been something on your mind that you've been thinking about. And you want to bring it up to them. Maybe, okay, what is it? Well, I've noticed that when I love it when people open the door for me, especially when we're out. Um, and when no, you know what? It might be easier to go to a certain time. So last week when we went out to dinner, um, when we got to dinner, you didn't open the door for me, and I felt a little sad, right? And this is like he's gonna think you're about to blame him and be like, just because I love it when that happens so much. It makes me feel protected. It makes me feel feminine and opened up, and it just gives me this kind of joy. And it doesn't have to be all the time, but when it does happen, I really love it, and I just wanted you to know that. What's he gonna do? He's gonna be like, "Oh, okay," and he's probably gonna open the door, because you didn't blame him.
Well, you're making now an assumption that he will then take that.
Well, it's a good chance. Like, that's the beginning, right? That's the
That's the
beginning of
beginning.
the process. It's the beginning of the process. Now he's at least highly aware of this is important to you. If he loves you, and like, that's a small thing. It's not this huge ask. And you didn't say all the time, just like when we're going out. And now he's just aware of it. But a lot of times, awareness really resolves things. But so the other step is this. So they have NVC, which is these steps, right? Observable fact, how you feel, why you feel that way, specific request. But it definitely doesn't always work, because when someone's triggered, you cannot talk any logic. Doesn't matter that you could say the most logical, like 1,000 people out of 1,000 would agree you're right. That doesn't matter at all. Doesn't work. They're in their fight or flight. So that's when you do emergency empathy. So let's do both these situations. Let's go back to yours with the car door. So say you shut the car door, and then he reacts like he gets triggered and he lashes out. Babe, why do you have to, can you not just close the door gently? It's like a $100,000 car. Like, come on, whatever, and then that feels horrible, right? But emergency empathy is amazing. So all you do is you just guess how they feel and why. That's it. It sounds simple, but there's some challenges. First of all, whenever someone comes at you like that, the last thing you want to do on the planet is guess how they feel and why. You want to defend. You want to point out why they're being wrong and they're being this and that. It's like, this is the natural how we all react. But so you have to go, no, I'm going to do emergency empathy. So whatever they said, you basically just let it just water off the bat. You just ignore it. You're not going to address it. You're not going to defend nothing. You just go, you just guess how they feel and why. And then I want you to do it. So I want you to guess how he feels and why, but use a real feeling. And so there's a lot of fake feelings. So I'll give you the rules of what a real feeling is. Here's a fake feeling: disrespected. That's not a feeling. Because what does that mean? It means you're disrespecting me. You're wrong and bad. I'm a victim. You should change, right? All that in that one word, that's pretending to be a feeling. So anytime a word implies something is being done to you, it's not a feeling. Like, I feel cornered. I feel abused. I feel neglected. I feel mistreated. I feel left out. All not feelings, all judgments, and saying that the person wrong. So a feeling, you should be able to feel it alone on a desert island. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel upset. I feel stressed. I feel frustrated. I feel lonely. All these things that don't imply. And there's a couple of words that are gray areas. Annoyed. I feel annoyed. Kind of implies someone's being annoying to you, but also so words have multiple meanings. One word has multiple meanings. So annoyed can also be, I just feel annoyed. I'm just annoyed. And so you can use annoyed as well, but that's like a little gray area word. Depends on how you use it. So guess how he feels and why right there. So, okay, I'm going to lash out so you get the feeling.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, hey, could you please close the door gently? This is a very expensive car, and I just want you to treat my things with respect, if that's not too harsh.
I'm guessing that you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. So I actually have a question for this, because I could go with the easy answer of annoyed or frustrated, but I also have a feeling that he feels overwhelmed in life, but I don't want to make it, we don't want to make it necessarily bigger than the moment, because he could be feeling overwhelmed with work and life situations outside of that particular moment.
I think my recommendation, this is where the art form comes in. If I would go for the biggest one possible, go with everyone, as long as it's authentic.
Okay.
And but the thing is, I would shy away from the I'm guessing you're feeling, because it feels like
I thought that's what you said to do, though.
No,
guess.
I want you to guess, but I don't want you to say I'm guessing.
Oh, you don't want to say I'm guessing.
Just are you feeling this because of this? It's just clean and powerful. Anything else kind of gets murky, and there's a lot of traps, and words are very tricky. So, and ask, not tell. So yeah, so let's try it again.
Are you feeling overwhelmed right now with how much you have going on?
That's powerful. You know what that did to me? Stopped me in my tracks. Like, you said, are you feeling overwhelmed? I'm like, what? By everything going on? And now what it forced, okay, so what happened? That's the power of it. Are you feeling this because of this? That's the power. Don't complicate it more than that. What happens is you force me to go put my attention on myself. And do you know Vipassana meditation?
Yes.
That's the whole meditation. The path to enlightenment from a Vipassana meditation is just putting your attention on your body and circulating in your body. Why? Because that is a calming act. So when you do emergency empathy on somebody, it forces them to turn their attention on themselves. Instantly, they get more calm. And now you're asking them about their favorite subject themselves. Like, it doesn't mean he's a narcissist. Everybody's favorite subject, like at least one of theirs, is themselves. It's like, you know what I mean? They're also something they're an expert on, themselves, their inner world. You're also asking about their inner world, which no one asks about. So all that happened right then, stops me in my tracks. And then I'm like, yeah, I do feel overwhelmed. And like, thank you. Now I'm not even thinking about the door anymore. I'm thinking about my whole life. That's why it's okay to go straight for the heart.
That was so genius. Kasha Urbanik, the author of Unbound Woman's Guide to Power, she actually gives an exercise where it's follower leader exercise, where if you're the leader of an experience and you're aiming to shift direction, you just start asking the other person questions about themselves and back-to-back questions, and you can cut through any type of energetic that's entanglement that's causing confusion in the
People
moment.
could be in a rage. People could be in a murderous rage. Like, and you could. And so the thing about it is, it doesn't always work with one, but sometimes it does. Sometimes you say one and there's tears. When it worked on me the first time, she said one thing and I cried. You know what I mean? Because it was exactly how I felt. I just start bawling, but like, yeah, I was very, it can work. But oftentimes it will take a few rounds.
So this is a skill set to be mastered, but also want to be cautious of overcomplicating it. So in the moment, I could also just directly ask a feeling. You don't need something else to
No, you
go.
need the two.
You need the two. So I need the feeling. Yes. And what's the second?
Because are you feeling overwhelmed? Like, what are you talking about? Are you feeling overwhelmed because of all that's going to work? And you want it to be specific, right? Like that. Like, because
so what's number two though?
How are you feeling and why are you feeling that way? Yeah, how are you feeling and why? And it's the 1-2 combo. They do not work without each other. It's just, wait, are you upset? Like if someone's angry and someone's crying, you say, are you upset? Like, yeah, of course. Oh, you notice, Sherlock? Like, I'm crying. But if you say, are you upset because of something that happened at work? Now it's like, it just works. Now they're going to give you information. And you don't have to be, the thing about emergency empathy, you don't have to be correct. This is what my second book, which is coming out in October. My first book was about NVC, a little bit of emergency empathy. And now my second book is way more about emergency empathy because it's like the superpower of it. But, you say the first thing, and even if you're wrong, it doesn't matter because it was a 1-2 thing that asked about their inner world. They're still going to calm down, and they probably going to give you a little bit of information. And you need to really listen to what they say and what they didn't say. And you don't want to just repeat back. I know repeating back is better than insulting or being violent, like if someone says, like there's like the repeat back kind of exercise people do. It's okay, but you want to go deeper. So whatever they say, you really listen like, oh. And then you don't want to repeat the feeling. So you wouldn't be like, are you upset twice in a row? Go ahead.
Who would you say? So we just came out of the Beyond Biohacking Conference, and John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, did a big talk on stage. And, some of these old school relationship love teachers, Alison Armstrong somewhat as well. She has understandingmen.com. Some of these old school teachers say, don't ask a man how he's feeling. This kind of contradicts everything in nonviolent
I would say
communication.
don't just out of the blue be like, hey, how are you feeling? But if he is triggered, then yeah, do it. It'll work. But don't do it just by itself. Again, don't be like, are you upset? Or don't ask, how are you feeling? How are you? It's too big. It's too broad. And now I got to do the work. That's why it's called a specific request for the question. And emergency empathy needs to be specific too. There's power in specificity. And it's also vulnerable because you can be wrong. If you're like, are you upset about something in the world? Is something bothering you? It's like, no, are you upset about this thing? And they'll be like, yes or no. And none of us want to be wrong. But when you ask a man, yeah, ask him, but only if he's triggered, But yeah, you can do it anytime as long as there's the combo though. Are you feeling upset about this thing? Then we don't have to think and like scan our whole feeling spectrum. It's just too broad,
This is such an amazing skill to have because I can think of even a couple, and typically when one is triggered, the other is triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And so having this as a skill set to go in your toolbox and utilize enables you to cut through the bullshit in the moment.
Yes.
For example, you're in a argument that keeps repeating over and over. Are you upset that we keep arguing about this thing over and over? Like, it's so simple that it then cuts through the acknowledgement of, oh, we're cycling. I'm acknowledging we're cycling. We're both frustrated in some way, but now I'm going to lead us out of this by directing and giving attention on this other person to focus in on themselves. And then ideally, our partner is willing to learn the skills as well and then can play in the game with us.
Yes. Yeah.
I was laughing a moment as we were playing through the car door and the car door situation and being like, oh my gosh, if he would have just opened the car door, then it would have never been a problem than me shutting the car door.
Yeah. Then you would have had a good laugh. Like, that's a lot of times when you're done, like you're doing this process. Like I said, sometimes it takes a few cycles, but usually, when you're finished, because there's usually a laughter. There's some joke. There's some like thing that just occurs, and now the bond is good. And that would probably been where that one would end.
Yeah. One of my teachers, Jet Avliff, she's a teacher of clown, and she says tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yes. There's no tragedies, just unfinished comedies.
Unfinished comedy. It brings so much light into every single moment. So what are you seeing like when people decide that they want to make a decision to communicate better? What is the learning process like?
Well, like I said, first you have to learn the skills, right? That's the easy part, but it's still a bit of work. You got to learn the steps. You got to learn what a real feeling is, what a fake feeling is. And there's all these little traps that we speak with, like I feel as if, right? This is a huge trap that I recommend just eradicating that from the way you speak, because whatever comes next is a judgment. I feel as if you don't care. I feel as if, this house is not big enough. I feel as if but I feel, but we're pretending like we're saying a feeling. I feel, or I feel like you're not really listening. That's not, none of those are feelings. They're all judgments.
But I can think you're not really listening.
Yes, I don't think you're listening is a true way to speak. That is an authentic way to speak. And that's what we want to do. We want to speak authentically. What does that mean? It means I'm not basing, it's not a fact. My opinion is you're not listening. Are you? But I feel as if you're not listening. It's like there's a higher source speaking to me right now. And it says, you're wrong and bad. That's what that is. So it's really frustrating. And it's a really easy way for us. So we use it all the time. I used it all the time. Now I've really gotten rid of it mostly. But most people use that. So you have to really change these little things that we've been taught that is okay. And then little things like, I feel sad because you're late or whatever, like the blaming how we feel on other people. You got to change that. So this takes a bit of work. And then the big work though is when you're triggered and you got to do emergency empathy. It's like the last thing you want to do. When I had written the book, and I would still find myself getting into arguments, and it wouldn't even cross my mind to use emergency empathy. And they'd be like, you're the NVC guy. How come you didn't use it? I'm like, you're right. Why didn't I? And then I started to become more aware of it when I get triggered. And then I'd be like, oh, I got to do emergency empathy. It's like, oh, that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want. And I'd be like, do it. This would be the story in my head, and I'd have to yell, do emergency. Okay. Are you feeling sad because you don't know what I meant by that? And they'd be like, and it would work. I'm all tense. I'm all like, my body's tense, and it feels weird coming out of my mouth, and it works, still works. It's so clumsy. It's not perfect. It's not beautiful. And it's still, things calm down a little bit. And then, so that takes some practice and some time. And then the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then you just really I probably avoid 80% of arguments now. And then when I do have an argument or something, it's 80% shorter.
You're engaged to be married now?
No, I'm married.
You're married?
Yeah.
Okay. So who is Micah pre this relationship and previous relationships without having the skills of nonviolent communication? Now in this marriage with this woman, and is she trained in nonviolent communication too?
I mean, she read my book and she's around me. She's not like super trained, but we've influenced each other a lot, and so she pretty much knows the principles of it. Before I just my issue is still tone. I have to watch my tone.
Oh, I had a partner that I had to, yeah, his tone would just, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really have to watch my tone, and my tone used to be a lot worse. It still comes out even just the other night, but
But
she'll
you
call me.
know it. You know the tone is
Oh,
coming out. So some people don't
yeah,
or won't acknowledge that the
yeah.
tone.
No, the tone is powerful. The tone is strong, and it's yeah. But before I would do all the tricks. I would blame, say you're wrong and bad, and it just doesn't work. It just never works. You want to resolve something, and then do you ever have the feeling of like the last thing you want to do is get in a fight, but you also want to bring up something, but you just don't know how to bring it up without getting into a fight. And then so you don't bring it up, or you bring it up and you get into a fight. But you get into a fight because you're saying you're bad and wrong. So NVC allows you to bring things up that are sensitive or a problem without getting into a fight. Like like for us, one thing was if I'm at work all day and she's home all day and I come home and the house isn't kind of clean, like I don't like that. But I say what I told her, I use NVC and I was like, when I come home and the house is clean, I feel rich and happy. And I do. I'm like, oh yeah, house is clean. Like, yes. That's how, and when it's not clean, I feel poor and sad. And it's true. And I'm like, oh, I got to clean this. I don't feel good. That was that was the way to frame it because it was true for me. It's not that you're wrong and bad. It's just like, this is how I feel. If I come home and the house is dirty, I'm not doing anything else till the house is clean, at least to a certain extent.
Can I ask a question? Do you mean the house is actually clean or you mean straighten?
Just like relatively clean, there's like, just like,
Like scrubbed? Are we talking about
no,
scrubbing
no,
things?
not like being, I mean,
Or are
that's
we
great.
talking about like the stuff is put away?
Yeah, basically stuff is put away. There's not like a bunch of dirty dishes, or it just, a house can get just in disarray. So if a house is in disarray and someone's been there all day, it doesn't matter. It could be her or me. If I'm there all day, but the house has got to be like, if it's just, it could have been a big issue because me and her are both very sensitive, we're like sensitive artists. So I didn't, but through NVC, I learned how to just bring that up. Because if I say, if I used any tone or said you're bad and wrong for not doing this, but I just wanted her to understand, like, it's just how I feel. If I come home and the house isn't, if she's been home all day, you know, then I just like, I don't feel good and I don't want to do anything else till the house is clean. But she'll want to hang out. But I'm like, I'm not ready to hang out because we got to clean the house because to me, I guess I look at a messy house just as that's just not, I don't feel rich. I want to feel like rich and abundant. And that's how one thing that's important. It's important to me, right? That's another way to say something like your preference or something is important to me. It's important to me when I come home to have it like that. And if it's not like that, I'm going to work on it right now when we could be hanging out.
Let's unpack tone.
Yeah.
So how did your tone come to awareness that it was challenging to your partner? And what do you do with that?
Well, I mean, I guess because, when someone uses a tone, you know what a tone means, right? We can play all these tricks. Like, how are you feeling? Great. It's like, okay, so you're not feeling great. How do I know that? From the tone, Or just like, what are you doing? Why? Like, why? There's so much emotion can get expressed in the tone. So if I'm just being honest with myself, doesn't matter what you're saying. The tone is actually more important than the words. There's more information conveyed with your tone. So I just had to become more aware of the power of it and just acknowledge that and apologize when I use it, when I'm allowing my annoyance to slip out. And the fact that I can bring up things that are bothering me directly means it doesn't leak out in tone. You know what I mean? Like when you're not capable of bringing up the thing that's like the house being clean, right? I don't want to bring that up. I don't want to talk about that. But I was like, it's going to come out in my body language, in my tone, or at least not speaking, or, you know what I mean? It's like, whatever. It's the thing is issues can be resolved and they can be resolved completely. And now you can move on into the next issue. But if you allow an issue to not get resolved, then it's going to come back in different ways and it's going to leak out in tone and things like tone. So when you're always like regularly dealing with any issues, then it's not even it's a lot less of a struggle to have, a good tone most of the time.
Someone listening to this could think that nonviolent communication is a good way to get what you want,
Mhm.
to get others to modify their behavior.
Mhm.
What about this? Does it also provide greater self-awareness for the one who's studying it and using the tools, that maybe sometimes their agitation or frustration is their own thing to be?
Yeah, because it's always their own thing. The agitation, if you're doing NVC properly, then you just have to admit it's always your fault. However you feel is always your fault. So you're sad, your fault. You're frustrated, your fault. Right? So when the house is thing, it's like when the house is like this, I feel sad and poor because I prefer it to be clean. So I have to own that. So but NVC can be used to manipulate, but that's not using it correctly, because like, there's certain things that phrasing that a lot of some other people who do NVC use, I don't really like to use. And Marshall Rosenberg, who created it, he put it in the book, but that was in the 70s. And so it's a different era, and we use language evolves. But they have a thing like, I have a need for. To me, instead of saying I have a preference, I like to say I have a preference. This is important to me. I would prefer it. I want it, or I don't want. Right? That's how I like to say it. It feels more modern, feels more clean. But in the book, and some people use, I have a need for something, and if you say something like this would be a way to be manipulative with NVC play. I have a need for you to give me more empathy. Like, that just makes me feel icky. You know what I mean? Like that's like, I'm saying I have a need, so you better do it, or it's gonna be a problem, right? And then for you to do something to make me feel happy. And so that's all trickery. That's how you can kind of use it to manipulate, and people do. I've seen it, and I don't like it. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the books. Like, I just feel like I distilled it down to, like, just the basic, fundamental, practical ways that you can use it, and to avoid being manipulative with it. And if you're always owning how you feel, it's hard to be manipulative.
Well, too, on the other side of manipulation, if you twist that up, it's leadership. And there are, like, the world could use really powerful, integrous leadership right now.
Yeah.
And people are open and wanting that type of leadership. I've played, and, this is Deepen with Christina, and we run a love club, and we teach the skills of intimacy and love. And inside of that is everything in the erotic. And in the erotic, that subcategory of BDSM and dominance and submission. And there's a power dynamic that is engaged with it. And so when you learn these skill sets, you can become a phenomenal leader that can actually guide us into a happier, more fulfilling place to be and live. Like, using this type of skill set, you can lead a family, you can lead a company. Uh, you know, you could lead. I would actually think that it would be great. Years ago, so I've never voted in a presidential election, because I've never felt that any um, candidate was speaking to my heart, is that I really felt that they cared. And there was one time that I was parading around an idea. I was like, well, what if that there was like 3 books that we agreed on as an American society, that
Mm.
we all read. We all read these 3 books, and the president read these books. And I can think of, if we all subscribe to nonviolent communication, or the 4 agreements, or we teach in the Love Club, the 4 pillars of a conscious relationship, then now that's a society, that's a type of leadership that I subscribe to. That's somebody who I'd walk out the door to go to the university, or vote online, whatever you do these days, to vote for that particular person, because without those skill sets, we're just throwing our traumas all over each other.
Yeah. I mean, those are great books. There's a lot of crossover in the 4 agreements with be impeccable with your word. which is kind of like speak authentically, don't use this little trickery, and then take nothing personal, which is, kind of like I feel how I feel, you feel how you feel, and
Always do your best.
yeah, I mean, always do your best. That's a great one.
Don't make assumptions.
Oh yeah, don't make assumptions. Yeah,
Those are the 4.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We do in the We Deepen ecosystem and Love Club. We abide by and we practice the 4 pillars of a conscious relationship. You'll love them. You'll resonate. One is no attachment to outcome. Growth comes first.
Okay, let me digest that. No attachment to outcome. Growth comes first. In the context of a relationship, or
The
just
context of a relationship.
so no attachment to us getting married, having kids, having the ultimate relationship. The main what comes first is that this union is causing us to grow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that'll prevent 2 people from stifling the growth, and it'll actually keep the love alive. Because through love, we grow and evolve.
Yeah,
That's
so
like,
no one has to sacrifice their dreams or their power to make
yes.
this.
You might fantasize about getting married. You might fantasize about the family and having kids. That is totally fine to be in that fantasy. But it's being more attached to the outcome of growth than you are to making a relationship work for the sake of being attached and staying together.
Okay.
2 is both parties agree to own their own shit.
Yeah, so don't blame. Don't blame for your problem. Yeah, that's huge, right? Yeah.
3 is all feelings are welcome and no internal process is condemned.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very NVC too. But yeah, because however you feel is okay. The only thing that's not okay is if you're blaming me for how you feel.
And also, we want to know that's the greatest, that's what connects us to each other is actually sharing how we feel.
Yeah.
That's what true vulnerability
yes,
is.
Yes.
That's why I want to know you.
Yeah. And that's why in the second step of NVC, it's so important to be authentic, because if you're authentic with how you feel, one, it resonates because like your body language, you're saying you feel it. I can see in your body language, it resonates, and it's vulnerable. It builds instant connection when you really say how you feel, because it's a vulnerable act. And yeah.
And then 4, the relationship or dating or being a human here on earth is a place to practice love. Love is a practice. So all of this, it's not about doing it perfectly, doing it right. It's about your willingness to make the attempt and to practice and keep practicing over and over and asking, what would love do now? What would love do now? Because if we flip that manipulation into leadership and you're doing it from a sense of love, you're guiding somebody through that experience of love, then that's the true evolution. That's where we're growing and going to the next level.
Yeah. Love is the answer.
So let me take some scenarios.
Okay.
And I'm curious how would respond through nonviolent communication. I think even the 4 pillars fit right in there as well. But say that I'm dating and I'm having an intimate encounter experience with a new partner. So we're early dating. And we just had an intimate experience and I haven't heard back from him. And my system is getting triggered by that. How would I communicate through NVC?
Okay. So the first step would be the observable fact. So and the observable fact, this is where the art form comes in. You could bring it up a lot of different ways, but how would you, and the observable fact it serves to bring attention to the discussion, like it grounds it. So what could you say for the observable fact?
I'm feeling uneasy, stressed, and ungrounded because you haven't replied to my text message.
Okay, so let's break that down. So a bunch of stuff just happened. So one, that wasn't an observable fact, right? You went to the second step, which is fine, but it's fine to change the order. However, you said I'm feeling, let's just say, ungrounded, but then you said because you. So you were blaming him. So he's gonna.
Well, I'm telling. This is I'm working through to get there. Okay. So this is what I'm.
Well, if you had said
because
that to him,
situation.
Okay, yeah. So you wouldn't want to phrase it like that because we'll all take that as blaming and bad and wrong, and that's gonna defensive. But what you could say is, like the observable fact could be something like, we had an intimate, wonderful, beautiful encounter, right? Right now, I'm feeling how sad, ungrounded. What did you say?
Ungrounded,
I'm feeling ungrounded,
stressed.
stressed, and the more authentic and the more deeper, the better it is. So, would you say sad? Will it be the truest, most authentic things you're feeling? You think ungrounded and stressed?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had this beautiful encounter. I'm feeling ungrounded and stressed because I would have liked to have heard from you because after, and you can elaborate. You can. This is the art form. It doesn't have to be like when you're doing emergency empathy. It's kind of good to be tight, boom, boom. But you could expand a little bit. Um, we had this wonderful, amazing encounter, and it's been 2 weeks since I heard from you. That would actually be the full observable fact, right? There was no judgment in there. We had this encounter. I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. No blame, no judgment. I'm feeling ungrounded and stressed because I why were you feeling ungrounded and stressed without blaming him?
I thought we had something special,
Okay.
and this makes me believe that I'm all alone in the
Okay, wait.
experience.
The myth, this makes me believe, we're getting into some kind of gray area. Feels like this makes me believe your actions are making me do something, making me believe something about the world. But like, no, 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 no.
You
You're
don't.
choosing to believe that if you
Yeah.
want to. So
Yeah, it's the story I'm making up is that you don't care about me.
see, that's kind of interesting. And so now I'm making up the story that you don't care about me. So I guess I just want to know, do you care about me? Right? That would be one way to do it. But see, there's little landmines, there's little things that if we phrase it this way, sometimes it feels easier in the moment, but it's gonna make the whole discussion way harder. And what feels harder in the moment is gonna make everything easier. When you're just like everything you say you're owning, you know? So like this story I'm telling myself instead of it's making me, you're not calling me, it's making me making this story alive. Let's you do it one more time, that whole phrasing. So remember, like you had a beautiful experience.
We had a beautiful experience.
I haven't heard from you in
I
2 weeks.
haven't heard from you in 2 weeks.
I'm feeling
Stressed.
I don't think that's the most accurate thing you'd be feeling. It's not stress, is it? But isn't there sadness? Isn't
I think
there?
there's sadness of if I'm, and by the way, I'm making up these
Yeah,
scenarios in the moment, but I think that the mind is ruminating. The mind starts to
yeah.
ruminate on spinning out and
Okay.
looping on the missing of this
Yeah.
connection that we had.
Okay. So the key thing is just to be as authentic and vulnerable in the feeling. So if it is distressed, but to me as a man hearing that stress, like I would be like stressed. So do you care about me? You're distressed. What are you stressed about? What your friends are going to think? That's what that would
So
like.
go deeper
Yeah, go
in the
deeper.
the
Yeah.
sadness.
Yes, the sadness is if it's there, right? If it's there, but I would imagine there'd be some sadness there. So you're feeling sad, stressed, um, because now because you how did you word it before? Um, and now, you feel sad and stressed because now you're telling yourself a story that you don't care about me, and I guess I want you to care about me. So I just want to know, do you care about me? Which is a very vulnerable thing, but from the man, like when a man starts hearing this, we're gonna be like, we're ready for the blame, we're ready for the guilt trip, we're ready for this. But if it's not there, we can just
You
relax,
relax.
and now we can actually communicate and have a conversation, and it's beautiful.
Yes. Okay, let's do another
Okay.
situation. Couple, they haven't had sex in months, and the male is feeling undesired and and missing intimacy with his partner.
Okay. So he could bring it up. And a lot of times with a conversation like this would be a deep conversation, right? So it'd be good to be like, hey, something I would love to sit down and talk about. So can we maybe schedule time, or is now a good time, right? Little precursors, right? So let's say we did the precursors. The person said, yes, I'm ready to talk. So then the man's like, because you don't want to just bust out of the blue, like, oh, hey, and drop a heavy load on someone when they're unsuspecting. So you prep the table a little bit and then be like, so babe, it's been 3 months since we've been intimate. Right? That's the observable fact. I'm feeling lonely, right? Just honest, one word. Feelings are usually one word, no more than that. Any more than that, you're thrown into judgment, you're getting into murky waters. I'm feeling lonely because I crave intimate connection with you. And so I'm wondering, and then you can go many different directions from there. With a deeper, like a deep talk like that, I usually recommend doing just the connection based. Like, so I'm feeling lonely. Like, how do you feel when you hear me say that? Or do you have any thoughts? Right. So that's one. The clarity, the clarity based connection, it could be something like, which kind of is like you do connection based, right? You get a little feedback, and then you could do another round of NVC that ends in a clarity base. So, is there? Would you mind just let me know if there's anything that happened that is maybe bringing this disconnect between us that I'm not aware of? And then the third, the action base could be, would you be, and I wouldn't start with that. Like I said, like it's important to ease into these harder, deeper conversations, like sex in a marriage that's sexless, or like, alcoholism, or things that, it's not going to be one sentence fix. But the third one could be something like, oh, would you be willing to take an intimacy course with Christina with me? But that would be the action based one. It wouldn't be like, can we have sex right now? I mean, it depends on their dynamic, but those would be the three things. So, bring up what's going on, how he feels, why he feels that way, and then some requests. If they get sad, if they get angry, defensive, then you just drop all the NVC and you just go right into emergency empathy, which could be like, are you feeling upset because you think I'm judging you right now? Are you feeling annoyed because you think I'm trying to manipulate you right now?
Mm.
Are you feeling, scared because this is a sensitive topic that you're not comfortable with right now? And these are just like, calm down. And when they're triggered, you can't talk sense. You can't talk logic. They need to be calm. Once they feel heard and understood from the emergency empathy, now you can go back into NVC and just have that conversation. And then once things are worked out, you don't got to keep doing NVC. You can just now you can banter, joke, just be normal.
For the person who's listening and feeling or thinking that, damn, I wish I knew this before. I could have saved so many connections that I've had.
It's true.
How would you inspire them to be excited for utilizing this in the future?
Well, I'd say that if you learn NVC and you commit to it, it takes a little while. I'd say it takes a few months of reading the book, practice whatever way, but practice correctly. Um, you'll improve every relationship for the rest of your life. Every relationship with your children, with your friends, with employers, employees, customers, spouses, everybody, it will improve. Your fighting will decrease and your connection level will increase, and your ability to talk about painful things, stressful things will increase. And you also, the other things, you can actually learn to mediate between people and
Mm.
really help that. So it's just like, it's kind of like a superpower, and it really works, and it's very doable. It's very practical, and it's not expensive to learn. It's not like a 4-year degree.
You're working on your second book now.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
the
it's finished.
You just finished the second book.
Yeah.
What's this Why the second book? You wrote a first book on the topic. What did you leave out of that first book that you really needed to communicate in the second one?
That's a good question. So the first book was, I only wrote when I first learned NVC. Like, I have a knack for it, right? Probably because of my childhood wounding is now my superpower, right? So I wrote the first book because I was teaching everybody. I was talking about it, but I noticed I was repeating myself so much, and I was like, all right, most people just don't get this. They get hung up on the certain things. I feel as if everybody got hung up on the I feel as if, I feel like. So I was like, I'm just gonna write a little tiny little manual, and then it turned into a book, and I published it, and it still sells. It's still like it's working. It's out in the wild, and it's still every month. Like, for some reason, the same amount of sales every month, basically, for years now. Um, and then, but that was more emphasis on nonviolent communication, and it was one chapter on emergency empathy. But then I realized, like, emergency empathy is just as important as NVC. So this new book it's shorter on NVC and it's bigger on emergency empathy. So it's kind of like they kind of work together. They both have both because you do need both. You can't really do it. I mean, if you can only do one thing, I would say learn emergency empathy. That's like you can just do that, but that only gets you so far. So you do need both. It's like the yin and the yang, you know. Um, so this book is just more about emergency empathy. And the publisher actually, they heard me on a podcast and they reached out to me and were like, "Hey, we want you to write another book." And I was like, "All right, I'll do that. I've been wanting to do this." You know, I had the idea for the book before they contacted me, but
I think it'd be a good practice for somebody to, after listening to this podcast, to take out and start trying the emergency empathy in every communication that they were having. Just like spend a day or 2 days or 3 days and commit to it. And even if it feels awkward asking that question of predicting what other people are feeling because of
yeah,
whatever
it's very
reasons.
scary though. I, I I'm reluctant to say just start without any because there's so many traps. It's like go run on this field with 100 potholes. You know what I mean? It's like because when you try it, you're gonna say things that are manipulative and blaming, and you're not even gonna be aware of it.
So many traps, not out externally, but traps
In
that
our language, how we speak, someone might have the purest intention. I'm gonna use emergency empathy tonight with my partner, but not know really how to do it. Just guess how they feel and why, and they'll start using fake feelings like I feel disrespected, which all right, like I said, disrespected means they're wrong and bad. They should change. I'm a victim. They're responsible for my pain. All in that one little word. And they're trying to do, I feel disrespected. You know, they're trying to do it, but they just don't understand what a fake feeling is and what a real feeling is.
I ordered one of those pillows off of Etsy that has the emotional wheel.
Oh,
So my house, I can always look and be like, what is an emotion and what is not? We bring the pillow to all the love immersion so people can sit and they're like, okay, these are my feelings. Because
yeah.
we weren't taught this stuff in
No,
school.
we're not.
We weren't taught the difference of a feeling versus a thought and how
Yes.
to communicate to create the bonds that we wish to have.
Yeah. I would say if someone really wants to start learning, listen to my podcast. It's free. There's 25 episodes. If they like the way I break it down, go to there's 25 episodes of that. I didn't hide nothing. I put it all there. And then if they want to go further, read Marshall Rosenberg's book too. He's the original creator. That book is amazing. But the podcast is really easy to digest. Just put it on. It's available everywhere. That'll give you a good beginning intro to it. And then I would say listen to a few and then start trying. And then you're going to get it wrong. Whoever's doing it, you're going to get it wrong. 100%. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to make mistakes. So forgive yourself. And then even tell your partner, hey, this relationship is important to me. So I'm trying something new because I think in the long run, it will make our love grow stronger. So please, give me some grace if I get it wrong. It's something along those lines can help out.
What's the domain?
Artofnvc.com.
Artofnvc.com.
Yeah.
We're going to put that in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
I'm excited that you're going to be leading a Love Club mastermind session soon. And then you also do a monthly practice circle?
Yeah, I do an online practice group because once you learn it, you need to practice because in the heat of the moment, it's like a deer in the headlights. Even me, I wrote the book and I still felt like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. It just feels when you're triggered and all of a sudden you go, are you feeling this because of this? It just, your brain is like, what are you doing? Like, this is silly. It's like the other thing is, okay, so for emergency empathy, what's interesting is to guess how someone feels and why you have to be able to do accurately, you kind of have to pretend like you're them for a second. You kind of have to put yourself in their shoes. And in that moment, you're egoless because what is ego? It's your identity. So to do it, you have to almost temporarily get rid of your ego, and your ego does not want that. So it's going to fight tooth and nail for you not to do emergency empathy. So I forgot what I was saying though. What was it?
You've been studying this for how many years?
Since 2016.
2016. How have you seen the interest in the particular topic progress over time?
I think it's always been here. It feels like everybody really, I don't know. It just feels like there's a steady amount of people. It's the people who are willing to do the work. That's what it is. There's always it's not a huge mass group. It's a small percentage, seems like, of humanity who's willing to put in the work. And it's usually people who felt the pain of fighting with their loved one. and they don't want to do it anymore, and they look for a way out, and they're worth to do the work. So this, it's been around since the '70s, still around today, and I think maybe it's growing. I think it's like slowly but
I
steadily
hope
growing.
it's growing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I believe that it's growing. That was kind of the answer that I was looking for. I was trying to ask a leading question like, yes, everybody now is
Yes.
learning nonviolent communication. Well, I will say, people are interested. I have one of my best friends, Yeti Iksa, is away this week learning authentic relating
Mm,
in Colorado, a week-long program. You know, Honesty Labs we've worked with on We Deepen before in the past.
mm,
You've hosted nonviolent communication back in 2020.
mhm.
So there is a curiosity now that, I think as relationships keep breaking down and people have the longing and desire for a greater fulfilling life, especially if they're embarking in longevity and mental well-being, like this is a fundamental piece. You want a high quality of life and greater fulfillment. Relationships are everything.
Yes.
I mean, all of happiness and fulfillment comes from interpersonal relationships. The greatest suffering comes from interpersonal relationships, and the greatest joy comes from interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, true wealth, I think, is in your relationships.
Yes. Thank you so much for being a guest on Deepen with Christina. It's so
Absolutely.
fun to know that you're now in Austin, Texas, and we're now in Austin, Texas, and what a fun city to be in. And I'm excited to see it. Excited to read the book, the second book. When does it release?
October.
October of 2026. Thank you so much, Micah.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Beautiful spot, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, ditto. Thank you for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Until next time, enjoy.